I'd like to now introduce our next session, which we're all very, very excited for. Shubhika has actually been on our wish list for very long, so having you here is a huge, huge achievement for us. So Shubhika Sharma is actually a student of journalism, but her heart was always in fashion. Her first brush with the fashion industry was when she was 19. She managed a boutique alongside her schooling. At 23, she opened the doors of Papa Don't Preach. And although it was originally envisioned to be a high street fashion brand, she pivoted the business model to reflect the needs of the Indian market and do as the Romans do. Shubhika's fresh spin on the playful side of Indian silhouettes is now globally renowned for the way that the brand dismantles rigid design guidelines and shines a light on contours of contrasting elements. After a conscious decision to drop the women's wear and size labels from their brand identity, Papa Don't Preach became recognized for its creative rebellion by those who thought that being free was to be 100% yourself was anarchic. Armed with a spirit for storytelling and led by a pure desire to create cruelty-free, ethically made ensembles, Shubhika harnessed the brand's values of inclusivity and equality and extended it to multiple campaigns, productions, and initiatives. The brand has made its way to a global stage at red carpets and award shows, and along with Shubhika being invited to speak about her journey at Harvard Business School. So please join me in welcoming Shubhika. Of course, we also have Abba, who's going to be moderating the session, the founder of Ladies Who Lead. So I'll leave it to you guys. Thank you.
Oh, you don't have to. It's very sweet of you. All right, guys, it's been a packed day. I know we've had some very intense sessions, and I think for me, at least, I've been waiting to have this time with Shubhika here on stage. I think there have been some themes that have come up across all the sessions, which she'll only be able to add further value to, such as those around communication and the digital world. But what's unique to her is her entrepreneurial journey. So I'm going to dive right into that. And Shubhika, we want it all. We want we want all the information.
My team has to filter me all the time.
Oh,
so
God.
Don't worry.
Okay. Lamia's sitting here very quietly listening.
Right
yeah. So, I think Devika mentioned a little bit in her intro, but your journey into the world of fashion was different, unusual. It wasn't accidental, so to say, but the path that you ended up on was not necessarily what you'd initially imagined.
Yeah.
Tell us how it began.
I think it started very early on, and I often... Okay, first, before we begin, can you hear me?
Yes. Rustling.
Yeah, that's why I didn't put it on, because it was...
Sorry, guys. Thank you.
How many fashion folks here? Just so I know. Okay.
I think it's at the back. Sorry, yeah.
Do you want me to help you?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Okay, so I always like to address parents when I'm asked this question, because I often tell people that I got extremely lucky because my parents gave me the gift of boredom. When I was really, really young. I would come back from school. I'm born and brought up in New Bombay, which is, I don't know how many of you know, it doesn't require a passport, but it's far from here. So it was just a really lovely childhood where I would come home from school and my parents would just let me be. I wasn't rushed into any classes, and luckily at that time there was no coding classes and things that kids have to rush into. So it was in those moments that I actually discovered what I was very naturally gravitating towards, and that was, to my mom's horror, cutting up my brand new clothes to make clothes for my Barbies, to make bags that I would want to then sell to my friends the next day in school.
Wow.
That's where I kind of discovered that I really enjoy making things with my hands, but then I like to sell them. So that is also a difference, right? Like, to be a designer, somebody who enjoys designing, dressing up their Barbies, making beautiful clothes, making beautiful accessories, it's when you like designing. But I like the business of fashion because I knew I wanted to sell it the next day. And I did manage to sell one bag which was made out of my pant pocket, so for 120 rupees.
Not
so
bad,
that was great.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then growing up, I love to read. Like I would consume 4 books a day, and they were usually American teen fiction. So because of that, I wanted to do everything. It's me, no? Is it fine now?
No.
But it's still
it was just the hair.
rustling.
Yeah.
Is
it
it
me
yours?
or is it? I think
I think it's
which
yours.
part.
Yeah, your question was. I'm just going to talk about my journey.
Yes.
So then while growing up, I just wanted to do everything. Like I wanted to do international relations. I wanted to become a lawyer because I was reading John Grisham and whatnot. Okay, so all that was happening. So what I ended up doing was BMM. A lot of folks here who have done BMM will know that a lot of us landed up there because it allowed us to just do everything. And in that, I pursued journalism. I worked with DNA while I was studying. And whilst all that was happening, I got an opportunity for a business acquisition at age 19, as I like to say it. Yeah. There was my local boutique auntie who approached me and she said, you know, I want to sell my business because we need the money. So for 60,000 rupees, which back in like 2006 was a huge sum for me.
It's a big deal at the age of 19.
Yeah, 60,000, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I went to my dad, and luckily he's Punjabi, so he loves business. So he said, okay, but you make a business plan and tell me how you'll do it. So I did. I don't know how great it was, but he backed me. So I would go to college in the morning, which was Jai Hind, and then drive back, and I would attend to clients. And I thought I would learn on the job, but I was actually just making petticoats and blouses matching to the sari for 100 rupees, 110 rupees, and then auntie saying, "Ye to color galat hai, ye match nahi ho raha hai." So that's when I realized that I needed to actually study fashion. I think that I was lucky to understand on my own that I was heading towards a time that would really need you to have a niche. You know, you couldn't just be jack of all trades, which I'm great at being even now. You had to be technically sound at something. So I completed my graduation. I went to London, but unfortunately I did a really short course. But I came back and I started Papa Don't Preach. So it wasn't unusual, but I think that I tried to distract myself a lot from it. But eventually, whatever you gravitate towards in your childhood is often what you're very naturally inclined to do in your older years. So
interesting. And I think when you first started Papa Don't Preach, I was reading somewhere that you thought that you'd be immediately doing interesting things, but initially you had to just toe the course and get into bridal and do what everyone wanted.
Yeah.
Is that how it started?
No, so I was in London in 2008, and that's when India didn't even have like a Vero Moda or a Zara or nothing. So I was in London and I was walking Oxford Circus and I saw Topshop and River Island and H&M also was like, wow. So I was like, what's going on? India doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like, Indians don't know there's something called High Street. And I called up my dad and I said, India needs me. And he was like, why do you think no other designer has thought of it? He tried to give me a lot of practice. I was like, they just don't know. Like, they don't know that this exists. Like, I need to come back. So he said, no, do an internship. I was like, no, like, I have to save India. When you're that young and you're so idealistic and you are like, I have come upon this beautiful idea and I'm going to be a super success. So I came back and I was one of the first independent Indian brands to start an e-commerce website made to measure, so you could put in your custom measurements, because I was like, I don't want to meet clients because I remember the aunties and their petticoats. I was like, whatever it is, I'm a designer, so I'm not going to meet clients. So I launched that with like fashion flash mobs. We were the first in India to do that across nightclubs. Suddenly, like, you're partying and lights would go up and models got onto tables and they threw out like my literature and my lookbooks, and that was a very, very exciting phase. But I understood 1 year into it that it's not going to give you any money, because in India it's very hard to tell people that this dress, which is made of jersey and has gunmetal like chain hanging and like metal studs, you should pay 10,000 for it or like 6,000 for it. There were people who did buy from me, but at the same time they would tell me, can you make me a sari for this occasion I have to go for? Can you stitch me a lehenga? And it would really piss me off. And I think that when I look back at that time and I compare it to where we are today, just as a country, I feel really, really good because at that time to be an Indian designer was like looked down upon by fashion students. That, oh my God, like you're going to make lehengas and saris. But look at us now.
Totally
look at us
changed.
now. Yeah. We're so proud to say made in India.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you have people wearing saris on a global stage.
Yeah,
It's a new fashion
absolutely.
statement. You have a lot of firsts to your name. I think you experimented or innovated a lot. So, from vegan stilettos to NFT collection, the first show in the metaverse. There's been, and that's only recently, but you've always tried new things.
Yeah.
Is that a penchant for wanting to constantly create? Is that something that you do more as a marketing strategy? Where does that come from? And share with us some of the highlights.
Yeah. I tell people that strategy is not necessarily my biggest strength. My biggest strength is the fact that I can pivot, and I'm very comfortable with doing that. And I think that has allowed me to just go into a lot of things fearlessly and just being able to execute it come what may. If you look at how I launched the brand, I've invested in a website, I've invested in the launches, and then for me to pivot and start a bridal line and be like, okay, cool. I mean, if it's a bridal line, I'll do it my way. But I mean, I'm just making lehengas, but I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to add pockets in it. I'm going to make it like calf length. I'm going to add bells on it. And I'm going to make bags out of acrylic that brides will carry. So it never was a strategy. It was just, it's a very overused word now, authenticity. But it was so genuinely just an extension of who I was. Which is why the brand name Power Don't Preach. There is just natural rebellion in who I am that, okay, cool, you want me to do that? I'll do that, but I'll do it my way. Okay, so it started with the fact, and then I got rejected at Lakme Fashion Week like 3 times.
3 times?
Yeah, and I was heartbroken. But then I got a call from them saying, actually we love your accessories, so can you showcase as an accessory designer? And now if you look at the world and how like individualistic it is, like this is who I am and this is my aesthetic, and at that time I didn't have any of those burdens. I was like, okay, cool, I'm getting a foot in the door. So I said yes, and I did 3 seasons as an accessory designer, but I showcased all my garments. So people were really confused, you make clothes, and in my accessories I got to have so much fun. Like the first was that I put shoes in a snow globe, which Anushka remembers, and she spoke to me about. Models were walking down the ramp while it was snowing around their feet. So it is, to answer your question, it isn't a strategy. It is just the energy that, yes, this opportunity is coming my way and I'm going to do it. And I've been very lucky that a lot of collaborators who approached us, even for this Metaverse fashion show that we did for the first time, they actually reached out to us that, we love your brand and we'd love to do it. So I've never said no. I had no idea how to do it. I didn't have a design team at that point, but we went ahead and did it. So the firsts have happened because we were just unique. We managed to be very unique about our voice. Our community was really, really strong. Our communication was really strong. So in a cluttered landscape, I think that becomes your biggest strength.
And guys, I will take questions like we've been doing across all the sessions. So do feel free to put your hand up. I'm just gonna. She's already got one, but I'll just keep going for the moment. You just touched upon it, that community was very strong. So did you, when it comes to the consumer, did you have that love from day one, or did you have to work extra hard to build that community?
I am an introvert. I actually do not have any love for people.
So much for human connect, people connect, and all the other lessons we got today.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was saying. I'm actually a member at this club, but I've never been here. I mean, I've been here, but I don't because I'm an introvert and I love people in books, but in person, it kind of, I get nervous. So I got really lucky that I'd done journalism, I'd grown up reading books, and I started my brand just when Instagram was starting. And after we got rejected I'm saying we, but it was just after I got rejected at Lakme Fashion Week, I was like, this is a really cool platform to take the power back, you know. Before that, if your brand didn't make it to the runway or didn't make it to Lakme Fashion Week, nobody would be able to hear of you. Like, what other platforms or avenues did I have? Stores wouldn't really take me, buyers wouldn't really take me because I hadn't done Fashion Week. So then I was like, this is working out really well for me. This is how I want to talk to them. These are the kind of pictures I want to pick up. And just, it was insane the love I got from the Instagram community. And I feel so bad for brands that are launching in 2024, 2023, because that time was something else. And I managed my Instagram myself for like 10 straight years because nobody else could like speak like me, talk like me. And because of that, it helped me shape my brand beautifully. And that is what I talk about, you know, when I talk about community. I studied in London very briefly. I've done journalism before that. I don't really have a network of fashion folks here. I didn't go to a school in the right parts of Bombay. I grew up in New Bombay, so I didn't have friends who became stylists and you know, magazine editors and models and none of that. So the entire network that I've built has been through Instagram, has been through the stories I've been able to tell, the work that I've been able to put out there. So I owe a lot to that community. And there comes a point where I was talking to a bride and I said, why don't you wear this? And she was like, oh, but that's not Papa Don't Preach. And that's when I kind of realized that now the brand is outside of me and it exists and it has its own body and head and feet and all of that. And that was very exciting that I no longer own it. You know, the whole idea in itself has taken shape and form. That again, so then I started taking feedback from, okay, what is Papa Don't Preach to you? And that came through DMs, that came through like comments. I used to respond to all of them. I used to have long conversations with folks on my DMs. I remember there was, I was so excited about my new workshop because it was big, spacious, white, and it was clean, and my cardigans are working, and I put up a story very excitedly, and somebody messaged saying, I don't see any vents for AC, I only see fans. And at first I got really upset. I was like, what, you know, in my head I was like, why don't you go see other designers? You should see other workshops, and da da da. Then I sat over it, and after 5 days I went to my team and I said, we need to get ACs. You know, they were right. So I think that if you know who you're taking feedback from, a lot is said about trolls, a lot is said about netizens and their commentary on your work and your life and all of that. But if in your head you have a very clear filter of who you're taking advice from, whose feedback you're taking, is it going to actually help you? Is it feedback that is actually going to help you shape and evolve your brand to be better? I've always picked on that and I've always taken that, and I think that has helped me. So that's what I mean by community. And what I also mean by community is that when we I don't know how many of you are aware of Alok Ved Menon, but they are a beautiful LGBTQ artist, an activist, and for fashion I think they've unlocked many doors for us internationally because of how beautifully they've worn our outfits. But when I posted about them for the first time, we lost like 20-30K followers in a day. And that had never happened. So I'm sitting in a meeting and then I'm getting notification. So then I was like, guys, this is what's happening. And everybody was like, you know, what are we going to do? And I was like, I just want to tell people, if you want to leave, I'm sorry to see you go, but you know, I hope you find the love in your heart. But for the people who stay, thank you so much. We did that. And I think after that, the kind of people who have stayed and the love that we got from people who stayed, there were brides. We were doing a bridal like love story edition, and I interviewed like 5-6 brides. I was like, 3 brides said when we saw the Alok Menon post, we decided we wanted to be a Papa Don't Preach bride. So this is a cis-het woman marrying a cis-het man, but she has been inspired by our inclusivity. So that is then what I mean by community, and that is through Instagram, and I love people through Instagram. Yeah.
And I also love, you know, how you approach size and the fat tax. You can talk about that because they are truly inclusive, and at the same time she took a stand against what you call a fat tax in the industry. Do you want to tell us about that?
I didn't take a stand. It was just who I was. I'm very lucky that there are forces that guide me to kind of make the right decisions and be the right kind of person. Not always, but mostly. I think it was that Diet Sabya was talking about fat tax being a thing, and a bride of mine messaged them saying, I want to talk about my experience at Papa Don't Preach, and I was shopping with her, and I said, okay, so how much extra for my size? And I just said, why would it be extra? We don't charge it. Like, it was a very normal thing. But then that's when I kind of realized, oh my God, designers are charging fat tax. Before that, I didn't even know that this practice was, it still is happening. Some of the biggest designers on their websites are doing it openly. So I think when that happened and then the conversation started, then I kind of realized, yes, we need to talk about it because this is not okay. I remember at Bridal Asia, at the exhibition I'm standing, and one girl came to me and she said, I just want to thank you because when you were dressing me, you said the garment has to fit you and you don't have to fit the garment. And I was like, these are just small things that she's having to come and thank me for. Like, where did we lose the idea that garments were made to dress you? Like, I literally am making garments to serve somebody and I'm asking them to pay for my garment. And how dare any designer, any brand say, okay, I want you to pay me for this garment, but because you are a size that I don't really, like, you're going to have to pay extra. And I'm going to put it on the invoice as 10%, 20%, so you know for life, you're fat. So it was just very basic. I was like, it literally, she's a bride. Itni mushkil se lehenga milta hai, I'll tell you, it's not easy. There must be thousands of designers, but to find that one lehenga, one outfit, it's painful. You found the one, and it's for like 4-5 lakh. Fine, you've convinced yourself or your family. In India, of course, it's the parents, of course, paying for the wedding. You've convinced them, they've agreed, everything has happened, and then you go to the counter and they're like, okay, but look, there's an extra charge for you being fat. And what happens to you then? It has to be a special day. I've actually found a lehenga, my parents agreed, wow, like that's it, end of story. But you're coming and thanking me, not required. So it's basics like that it's shocking. But you understand the other side of it also. Like, there is the other side. I understand why designers do what they do. If you want me to get into that, I can. But
we can get into it later. Let me ask you in terms of, the pivot point, because again, this isn't a journey that happened overnight. You had a lot of love, which has only grown over time. And, today you're a global phenomenon. But would you say there was, for those who are also building businesses, that there is, like, you have to, let's say, think through in your mind that it's going to take you X amount of time, or were there events that you felt played that pivot for you?
It's a very challenging journey, and I think that anybody who is venturing on this path of starting a business, I really hats off to you and to us. Oftentimes we are portrayed as businesses or people who put profits over people, but I think the reality of it is the amount of livelihoods that we are able to support because of what we do, and if we do it genuinely and honestly, it is a journey that can actually transform you because of how many times it breaks you and how many times you have to put yourself back together and get yourself back on track. I'm not somebody who plans, strategizes, has a vision, knows where it's going. I'm very in the moment, very Punjabi, makes sense, I'll do it. But then when you reach a certain scale, like till I was about 45 odd people just before COVID, and now we're about 250 people. Now the realities are very different. Now you can't really get away with saying, okay, if I feel like it, I'll do it. There is a lot of planning, there is a lot of strategy, and I think what has helped me is finding the right kind of people to fill the gaps in where I'm lacking, and building the team hence becomes your biggest challenge, and the right kind of team can actually see you through everything. So there is no one pivot point because it is such an ongoing journey. Like today, if Paris Hilton is wearing me, at the same time I'm getting an email from an upset client, or like our shipment hasn't really reached where it should. So it's just so continuous that there is no one moment in time. I'm often asked, when did you feel like you had arrived? I don't think that has happened yet. I don't think that it happens to people who are just involved on a very day-to-day basis of just keeping the ship like from not sinking but just keeping it sailing. There is no one moment, but yes, there are constant slaps and pats that will keep you on track to know you have to get your team right, you have to have your finance in place, and I especially say that to women. Yes, there is a lot of external noise. Yes, it has a lot to do with how we were brought up, but just our internal wiring because of that is that we don't know how to put finances first. We don't know what our relationship with money is. I have this lovely girl who's in my mentorship program, and she was like, I don't know why I'm not able to make creative stuff happen because I honestly don't need the money. And she said, I don't mean it to be in like a very show off kind of a way, but I don't need the money. My dad is supporting me. So why am I chasing clients? Why am I not able to make beautiful creative things? I said, firstly, that is the biggest problem. Why do you not need money? Why does your business not need to make money? Why do you think you don't need clients? That's how complicated our relationship with money is. We think that if we say my business needs to make money or that it needs to be profitable, I'm somehow being a person who's not creative, who's not true to her art, who's probably doing the business for all the wrong reasons. That has to change. When you are doing a business, your business bloodstream is going to be money. And I've had to really work hard on understanding that, because I was like, as long as I'm doing my work, as long as I'm building great products, as long as my team is happy, money will come. Money doesn't just come. Money has to be planned for. There has to be strategy. You have to save it. You have to personally save it. Your business has to save it. You have to know how to reinvest, how much to reinvest. I have been a proprietor for like 10 years before this. Now it's a partnership firm, but for those 10 years, every penny I made, I put it back in. I never withdrew a salary. So, you know, what does my bank balance look like at 37? Any of you can imagine it. It's not going to be very exciting. But my business is doing well. So I'm glad that I invested it back in the business. But fix that relationship with money. It's very crucial. Personally, even for business, find the right people. The two teams that need to be really solid in your business is HR, and the second is finances and accounts.
All right. Anyone want to jump in? It's a good point for, yeah, go Sangeeta. I'll get your mic. Yeah.
Sorry. The very interesting point you made about the fat tax.
Yeah.
And the non-inclusivity. I notice these days all the major fashion weeks have one person who's unconventional, one or two people, either on size or, you know, acid attack victims or whatever it is. But do you feel this is tokenism, and in practice our designers are still going forward with their fat tax and whatever it is? And is this a uniquely Indian problem? Because I don't think abroad sizing would cost you more. Like if you went to a foreign brand, like, you know, for a gown, would they actually be doing that?
Yeah, it's a very long conversation, but it's an important one to have. Because you have to understand both sides of why it's happening, right? Is it tokenism? Yes. Is it trendy? Yes. Are you going to get called out? Yes. So you do it. Are designers still going ahead with fat tax? Yes, they are. But why are they going ahead? Okay, internationally they are not charging. Why are they charging in India? It's because the whole ecosystem, as I was having a conversation earlier, we are a 30-year-old industry at best. So when you compare us to any of the brands outside, or if you compare even the Indian consumer to the consumers outside, it's not a fair comparison. We're we're like babies. We're like infants, not even toddlers yet. It's only in the past 3-4 years that you've seen actual investment coming in and the industry is getting formalized. When it gets formalized, it helps both parties, right? It helps the designer as well as it helps the consumer. But 99% of it is still pretty much unorganized. And in saying that, the consumer also hasn't matured. We live in a market which is so highly price sensitive. Like I always say, today if you ask me, can I afford a Papa Don't Preach outfit? Probably not. Not unless I save up for it, you know. So what would I go for? I would go for something that I can afford. That choice presents the problem, because in India you have such easy access to smaller designers who can copy it for you. You can go buy your own fabric and make it. There is nothing called plagiarism that can at all cloud your decision making. So, and then when I walk into a designer store, say today, even if I say I'm an inclusive brand, do I have all sizes of a lehenga and a blouse hanging? No. Why not? Because to make bridal outfits is so expensive. It's very, very expensive. It takes about 3 months for me to be able to, or if you think about it from designing inception to actually doing the shoot, putting it out there, putting it up in a store, selling it in a fashion that's luxury, with the packaging, with the client servicing, with the kind of team that I would need to run the show, to run a luxury brand. That price of an outfit is extremely, extremely high for me. But when the consumer walks in, what they will often say, because in India the mentality is that अगर मैं इतने पैसे दे रही हूँ तो मेरे लिए customize करो. If today the consumer starts saying that I'm going to walk into your store and I'll buy that outfit because it's beautiful and I can see the work on it. Okay, if you can just alter the fit, I'll take it home. I would be happy to do that. It would be easy for me to track inventory, how many pieces I need to make, how much raw material I need to stock. Yeah, because it is a very bespoke kind of a way of working. That nahi, you make me a piece. And if you in this no, in that pink bead na, can you change the pink bead to blue? I don't like that. है ना? वो अच्छा नहीं. वो आप बदल दो. बस वो बदल दो. बस इतना ही बदल. But वो इतना बदलने के लिए मुझे पूरा piece करना पड़ेगा जो मेरे pink bead की inventory है wasted. So unless the whole ecosystem matures, there is going to be people on both sides suffering, right? So what I often advise designers to do is that you incorporate the cost of these customizations happening in your MRP right at the outset, so that nobody feels bad. You can't do that. That right you don't have. But yes, you need to take care of your expenses, your team. It's huge. Like, you would not walk into a Burberry and say, I don't like the checks in the brown, can you make it in an orange? And this color, this one. Because Pinky has already worn that, yeah. She's worn that. है ना? उसने कल ही तो पहना था, तो आप ये बदल दो. I'm not going to do that. So Burberry can give you all sizes if they need to. And about tokenism, I feel like fake it till you make it in that sense is good. Because as long as you're doing it, it will integrate into your system and become a reality few years down the line. So even if you're doing it for the heck of it, do it. It's important.
I love her attitude, right? Yeah, it's brilliant. It's great to hear you speak and share. Yeah. So, since it's so expensive, like you shared, in the customization, and when you were, now of course you're a bigger brand, sure, there's probably still a lot more always that's, at risk. But when you were first starting out, it's harder then, isn't it? Right? So how does one deal with knowing that there's a risk of failure, or having backers that are kind of like, this must be your passion project, we'll give it to you, but pata nahi kya hoga, how do you overcome that? And because, like you said, there are also stops and starts, and you do need to have, some sort of way to cross the difficult times.
Yeah. I think initially it was a lot easier because there was a lot less at stake. And I was very, very lucky and very fortunate that my family supported me financially, emotionally. There was no point where they made me feel like it was a hobby. In fact, I think
that's really important.
Yeah. And I've grown up around women, my aunt, my sisters, who have built really good businesses, and they've done it from ground up. And my dad also, the way he's brought up us 3 sisters, I'm the middle one. So it was never seen as a hobby. There was always guidance, and I remember when I was 3 years into it, and I was really, really bleeding heavily, and I was not making any kind of money. I remember calling up my dad and saying that if in the next year I don't at least break even, I'm going to shut down the brand. To that, his message was, you won't need to do that, everything will be fine, and I'm there, why are you worrying? He said that, but the sense of responsibility luckily was there for me to know that I really had to put in everything that I had. And in the 5th year, it flipped. And it flipped, it didn't flip to say, okay, it was suddenly like in the movie you go through a song, there's a montage, and then you're just like, you know, this amazing, successful, you know, boss woman who's walking in, and like you have none of that. But I crossed over, and for me that was a big, big achievement, to be independent, to not have to rely on my parents. Yeah, so I don't know what your question was. I'm sorry, I'm slightly ADHD.
You covered it.
Okay, good.
But yeah, sorry, was there a question in the room? Yes, go for it.
Hi, I was just trying to check with you this particular thing of, initially you said that when you were 35, 40 people, you could do certain things very naturally, or, you could take calls. And after you were supposed 250 people and all, you had to think, you had to plan, and you had to strategize everything. So personally, how did you actually, what all did you went through in terms of, this kind of a shift? Because as we can see, naturally, you're not what you would look at when you plan or when you do. You are more naturally of a very, bubbly kind of a person who would just want to do something on your own, without thinking too much about it. So that's what I wanted to understand.
So I think when I say that I don't like to strategize, I want to say that I am a very strategic person, but it is I can think in like short batches of like 3 months, 6 months, a year. And if you talk about, it's not that I wanted to just do whatever I wanted to do. I was, as I said right at the beginning, right since I was a kid, I enjoyed the business of fashion. So I knew that if I was making something, I wanted to get paid for it. So that was very clear for me. So even when I was with 45 people and it was really tough and we went into COVID, we paid all salaries because I managed to run a scheme at that time sitting at home. It was called Care for Karigar, where we managed to make 27 lakhs sitting at home, and we sent it all to all the gowns to all our karigars. We managed to do that. So what I'm trying to say is that when you have 250 people, I read this amazing quote. It was a TED talk actually. She said when a woman is running a company, she's like the mother of the company. But in saying that, you really have to be like the mother of the company, which is not to satisfy the whims of a few at expense of the others, but to take care of everyone. So when you have so many people to take care of, like when I was with 45 people, I could individually help a lot of my carriers. Sacha, you need this, you need this, you need that. But when there's 250 of us, I have to think of everybody, because if I give even charitable money to somebody, there's somebody's salary at stake. So, and then how many pieces are you producing? How much inventory can you really keep? How much can you hold? All those things that automatically will teach you. So what it has taught me is to just respond instead of reacting. Initially I was a reaction person, now I am a responder. And I don't think that you can ever really change a DNA of a person. You can't change my DNA. My DNA is I'm super emotional, I'm super motherly, I'm super like, okay, you know, as a brand we need to stand for this, or we need to create designs that are more you know, just innovative instead of being practical. I've gone through all those pains. But I think what has really helped me understand is that there are decades in your life. So when you are, say, 1 to 10 years, you are studying, that is your decade for studying, for learning. Then you go from 10 to say 20, you're then coming into the real world, so you're studying more seriously. And then 20 to 30 is when you start applying all that you've studied, all that you've learned. 30 to 50, these 20 years are years where you can actually make the money, okay, that you need to be able to retire at a decent age, and then whatever charity you want to do, however you want to give back to the world, you can do it then. Nothing in this world, we've accepted capitalism as the way of this world, right? It is the system we're in. I am a product, I'm in that system, so I can't say that I can do whatever I want because the system won't allow me to. So when you understand the system and you kind of understand, okay, these 20 years, so I went to Harvard Business School and I said I want to start a Karigar Academy, those are those plans that I have because I know that I want to do that, and I was hoping that I could raise funds there from people which I couldn't. And then I felt really bad that I've been talking about this Karigar Academy for so long, but I haven't been able to do it. But then reality is that in these 20 years, I make the money that I need to be able to start that academy when I'm probably 50. So the system will teach you, if you are somebody who can pivot, if you are somebody who's flexible, who's open to taking feedback, who's open to bringing on team members and saying, look, I don't know how to do this. I need you to help me out in this. If you're able to do that, and if you break your life in decades, it gets easier to play the game.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
We have a question here.
Hi, I wanted to ask, how do you handle plagiarism and people tagging you when they've still not bought from you?
We don't handle it because it's really not in our control. It definitely impacts and affects us in a way that you know that it is happening, and it's not that it's fine. Actually, it's very interesting. There was this reel that was going viral where in Chandni Chowk the guy is like, मैं सब्या करता हूँ, मनीष करता हूँ, पापा डोन करता हूँ, ये करता हूँ. I was like, thank God Papa Don was there, because if it wasn't there, I would really feel bad. Like, why are you not taking my name? So I think that it is a double-edged sword. Like, on a great day, I'll be like, okay, great. But on a bad day, I'd be like, why? Because it actually took me almost a year to get excited by this idea, 6 months to ideate with it, then so much time for me to make it, and you've literally copied it in a month and put it out there. And there was this really fancy bride who came to me and she said, I'm wearing sabya for this, Gaurav for this for this, but I can't take that lehenga that's everywhere, and that was my brand new collection. So those things, of course, I mean, but you also know that the people who are buying your replicas are not really your TA, not really your luxury market, but then your luxury market in India is that small. So, I mean, it's just a part of, everybody gets copied, so you can't help it.
Thanks, Shubhika. I'm curious to understand, you said you built the right team. What did you do, or what did your HR team do? Just curious to hear and learn from.
I don't think that I have managed to build the right team yet. I think that I'm still far from that. But I think that post-COVID, I've gone through so many quick changes that every phase of growth required a different kind of a team and skill set. I think that if your core team kind of works with you in alignment with your ethics and in alignment with the well-being of the company and well-being of the business, and has loyalty towards you and the business, and has the right kind of attitude towards work, those are the right kind of people. For me, that is very important, because I think skills can be taught, skills can be learned on the job. But if you're not ethically aligned, if there's loyalty is missing, if your attitude to work is work-life balance, that is an attitude that doesn't stick. It'll stick for a year, 2 years, but they'll automatically move on. So those are not the people. I mean, Sadhguru says it really well. There is no such thing as work-life balance. Work is a part of life, and life is all of life. You have to be balanced whilst doing it. So people who can get that formula get it, and they stick. But there's no right formula for it.
So one of the things about your brand is, and you've always talked about it, it's about creating the experience.
Mm-hmm.
You've always said it should be something that people are feeling is they're embracing, that it's a life event, something that's happening to them. And I'd love for you to just shed a bit of color on that as a creative person, because your clothes are so unique. And I think when you were talking about TG, I'm not sure if it's if it's, I don't think it's just younger. I
Not
think
anymore,
not
no.
anymore, right? But initially, I remember because
Yeah.
I think of the colors
Because
and the
I was that
pop, and
age.
you were also, yeah. So you share with us the evolution of the brand.
Yeah, I think evolution happened with my own growth. It's very personal to me. Till now, like whatever I design, I'll come down and I'll try every single piece if it's fitting, if it's looking good or no. And I think the evolution of the brand kind of happened with my evolution. And I tell people that as long as you are connected to the fabric of what's happening in the world, you can't separate fashion from pop culture, from politics, from what the people of the country, of the world are feeling at that moment. If you are aware and connected with that, it'll flow through your work and people will find it relevant. You know, there is so much fear that people have that I'm going to become irrelevant, I'm going to become old, but you can't if you are in touch with what are people feeling right now. What do they feel like right now? Do they want romance? Do they want to feel pretty? The world is so hard, they want to feel pretty. The world is going towards like this crazy AI future that we have no idea of what's going to happen. So today they want to go into like mermaid core, and they want to go into like nostalgia, and they want to go into like very girly core. So if you are aware of that and if you're connected to that, there is no way that your evolution can't happen. At the same time, talking about color, a lot of people ask me, but I just don't know any other way to be. It's in fact very hard for me to make an all red bridal lehenga, to make an all ivory look. It's hard for me, so I have to kind of delegate that. Okay, you do the red lehenga. Okay, yeah. So,
Who's someone that's inspired you, whether in the fashion space or otherwise, entrepreneur, designer?
I think when I was starting the brand, and which is why we've started our podcast, #Preach. When I started the brand, there was just so little literature on how fashion brands in India were doing it. What were their teams like? What was their setup like? Because I didn't do an internship, so I always tell people, please do an internship. It's the only time you learn at somebody else's cost. It's invaluable. I didn't do it because I had to save India. I don't know if I did. They didn't want me to save them with my high street wear. But how were they doing it? What were their strategies? Even now, it's so secretive, it's so closed as an industry that you don't know so much of what's going on. There's no blueprint. Even when YouTube came, all the documentaries about Christian Dior or Chanel and stuff, I can't apply that because India is so unique. It's the only country where you're actually working side by side with your karigars. You're managing, on one hand, you're managing a corporate staff where they're getting like insane salaries, and at the same time, you're working with karigars who have really basic issues like I remember there was a small light that I had that my dad had gifted me. It was like a laltain, I call it, you know. And I was like, okay, I was cleaning my office and I was like, okay, just throw it. It was like a showpiece. I remember a karigar came to me and he said, Madam ji, ये मैं ले जाऊँ क्योंकि मेरे घर पे light नहीं है. And he would have sent that back home with somebody who was going by train like 4 days away, because there was no light. So that is the reality that you're living with. So that is so different from any of the brands that you'll probably, you know, can get literature on or content on. So I think I had 2 conversations with 2 designers that really impacted me. One was Sabyasachi, and I absolutely love him for his vision and his business acumen and so much clarity. I think it's because of him that I pivoted into bridal wear, because I walked into his store and he was sitting there and I said, look, this is my brand, but it's not making any money. He said, that's because in India, you need to make Indian wear. He said, I've done 4 seasons at New York Fashion Week with my Western wear. Have you even heard of it? And I was like, no. So he said, yeah, so because in India, and and he said, look at me, I'm the most traditional designer there is now. Because that is the culture. These are the people. You're asking these people to pay you. You have to give them what they need. So that is when and then he told me that I will take my brand to a point where I can get funding, and then I will start my Pret and ready to wear. When I was doing high street, I was doing Pret and ready to wear. He said that's not when you do it, because Indians are not going to pay you when you're not a brand name, but they'll pay you when you've made a brand name. So I think that advice really helped me. That's immediately I went and I started my bridal line and I launched it. So that advice. And the second person was Manish Arora. He works with a lot of color and I've absolutely adored him. And I met him at his store launch, and he said, everybody asks me to keep changing, but just do what you love. Just stay true to who you are. So I found an in-between, I think.
Actually, I love his stuff, and you reminded me that, yes.
Yeah, so
that's the
I
designer
took the best of both. Like, I understood I had to stay true to my color and, like, you know, my brand and my aesthetic. At the same time, I had to be really practical about, like, what I need to do first, how I need to change. And I mean, that it was like an eye-opener that, of course, I'm in India and I'm asking Indians to pay me and I'm not ready to make what they want. So, I mean, there's such a disconnect there. So, yeah, these two designers really helped me. Just two conversations helped me.
Vinita?
Thank you. My question's kind of way off on this path, but I'm curious to know, you've built a brand that's more global in nature. How do you build in India for the world? What were your key challenges and how did you overcome them, or what do those challenges continue to be?
Yeah. I didn't really build a brand to go global. I think this is where I talk about Instagram and I talk about a community. Chrissy Teigen reached out to us on Instagram. Mindy Kaling reached out to us organically. Alok Menon dressed okay. Like, we have no PR agency, company, anyone sitting outside of India. That's Lamya. She's a one-person team who handles PR sitting here and on her keyboard and like on Instagram. So it has happened. And I think it has to really do with the storytelling, with our version of what India is. And I think even I seeked an answer to this, and I went to the US and there was a lot of influencers, kind of, we were networking because they invited me there. And one girl came to me and she said, you know why we love Papa Don't Preach here? And I was like, yeah, I really need to know, because I can't understand what's happening, because my sales on my website were 80% US and 20% India at that point. So I was really eager to know, like, what am I doing right so I can do more of it, right? So she said that all these years we've been told what India is by our parents, which is the more traditional Indian way. This is the first time we have a chance to tell our parents or the world that this is India to us, or this is our version of India. So I think we gave people that, because we bridged a world that was very far away from there and to a world that they live in now, and we kind of made it Indian. So I think that's what works. So when you are talking about going global, a brand that bridges the two worlds will only be able to go global. There is a reason why when Sabya is doing his Pret or going to Bergdorf, or he's making skirts and he's making tops and he's making trench coats and he's making jackets, unless you bridge the worlds, there's not going to be a truly Indian brand that can, I mean, resonate with people there, because they have no connection, unless they're people who just really appreciate made locally kind of stuff. And I think you have to have a strong brand story to tell. Like, they have to know why they're buying from you and what they're getting from you. Like, that communication. The brand story is that we are a community-built brand, that we are inclusive, we're very proud to be so, and that we are a bridge to an India that was and an India that is. And that we do it very fearlessly. And I think that's exciting for people to experience.
Hi, Shubhika.
Hi.
First of all, big fan. So my question to you was specific to in-house manufacturing, because I run a footwear brand, and because I make heels with arch support, contract manufacturing was not for me. So what are the challenges for somebody who set up in-house manufacturing from the ground up without any kind of experiences, and how long does it realistically take before the large fixed costs make sense?
So are you only manufacturing for brands, or are you also
No.
retailing and designing?
No, I am manufacturing for myself. I'm not like making for other
That means you're
brands.
creating a brand.
Yes, I am. My brand is called Anagram, so I am creating a brand.
Okay. So firstly, it depends on the scale that you want to take it to. If you want to make it a large brand, those challenges are going to be very different. If you want to keep it at a level where you take bespoke orders, you make made to measure, because in India that is a big thing and it works. But it depends on your ambition. Now, if you want to build a brand on a larger scale, those challenges are many, in the sense that I was somebody who was very passionate about shoes. Not studied them, but extremely passionate, which is why when I did accessories as an accessory designer in Lakme Fashion Week, I got the shoes made on my own with no experience, but they were the only things that got talked about. Even today they were mentioned. So I was that passionate. But in India, you realize that anything that is priced over 10,000 is a hard sell. For anything that is handmade and handmade well, anything below 15,000 as an MRP, especially if you're manufacturing in India, is not a viable price point. So you need to be selling fine between 13 to 15K. Your market then shrinks. On top of that, Indians only spend on footwear after they've shopped for everything else. It's an afterthought. Especially if you're making anything bridal wear, anything Indian, it's going to go under lehengas and saris where it's not really seen. So then they just need you to give them the crimson and the stofa heels and they're happy with that, right? It's the last thing people will spend on. Bag still they will spend on before they spend on a shoe. So if you are building a luxury brand, automatically like your market is 0.0001% in India. Of course, you can fact check me on the number. I'm not great, but I'm just giving you like a visual understanding of how small the luxury market is. Within that, for you, if you're launching the brand, I don't know if you've launched it this year, last year, 8 months ago, you're trying to market using Instagram, which is so cluttered. You're then, I mean, it's going to be very challenging. Any business takes about 5 years. You have to have patience for that. But if your ambition is to launch a big shoe brand out of India, I'm just going to be very honest, you'll have to add some other accessories to it. I would suggest you add bags to it. Otherwise, it's not a viable business.
I actually, sorry, just had a question because you mentioned Instagram being cluttered. Obviously, you've been in the fashion space for a long time. We have a lot of people here in fashion. What makes you notice a brand? What does a brand have to do to catch your attention?
Nowadays, nothing catches my attention, honestly. But I think for me, and it is very specific to me because I enjoy storytelling. It's very important to me. I need to be able to understand what the brand is about, what the founder is about, and what experience I'm going to get when I wear that. That's what it is. I don't like the very curated feeds with like, you know, a Monday post and a Tuesday post and grids looking very like beautiful at all. And I think that you just have to have a unique product. There is just no two ways about it. You can do all the storytelling, but you have to have a unique product. And I think that that's where a lot of brands are failing, because right now social media is just making us so trend focused and trend conscious that it's taking away from any kind of originality. You see people, go to a club and see how girls are dressed. Everybody looks the same. And why? Why is like, that's what I was saying, like today I'm wearing this is because I'm expected to be a woman in business, so I'd probably be wearing a suit and probably be wearing something with like power shoulders and looking really like in control, but I wanted to be very, very femme because I just want to be that today. Very non-Papa Road breed. So I feel like that individuality is missing. That kind of like a wow or surprise factor is missing. There are brands that clearly stand out, but there are too many brands that don't.
You mentioned that you're now a partnership, I also
Yeah.
asked because so many brands are being acquired left, right, and
Yeah.
center. Is that something that's come your way as well, or when you say partnership, has something changed?
No, I've done it within my family. We were approached by, I think,
One of the two.
yeah, one of the two. But at that point, I didn't feel like I was in a position to command what I felt like I deserved. I thought my business had to grow to a certain extent. The profits had to show a certain way. I had to have a certain number of stores so that I was in a position to negotiate. When they approached me 2 years ago, we had just come out of COVID, I just done the partnership, we were just expanding. At that time, we would have gone away for peanuts. So that, I think that anybody who's running a business in today's environment, which doesn't have to do with AI and tech and freelancing,
It's tough.
God bless you, you all are very lucky. You all are in those professions. That's where the money is at. But anybody else who's in fact trying to do like manufacturing and retailing right now,
It's tough.
It's
very
tough.
Yeah.
it's tough. And so, I mean, it's okay if it's tough. Life is supposed to
But
be
you
tough.
can-
But
you
you
can
have to
make
be
a-
very,
yeah.
very resilient. Like very, very, very resilient.
And like you said, you get your business right, you can have a self-sustaining, profitable business.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely.
Yes. Let's get you a mic. Yeah, and then we'll pass it ahead.
I had a question. So I know you mentioned you have an accessories line, you have a bridal wear line, and a pret line. So how did you, or when actually did you create or think that this is like the distinctive design ideology or like brand identity that you created? Because it's like very different collections, lines, but your design is like, it's very distinctive in all of them.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment because I have a lot of issues where I look at my lines and I'm like, it's not looking cohesive enough. But Pret is something that we've recently launched. And as a person, I don't know how to do Pret because I like my embroideries. I like my fabrics being rich and pure and, you know, mostly silks. Pret has been a challenge, but it is something that you have to do if you're in India, because you cannot cut off such a huge chunk of a market size. Again, that's what I meant by the size of a business that you aspire for it to be. If you want it to be a large business, you will have to have items that are priced across price points, because if you are only doing bridal, then you're just seasonal, then you have to limit your team size, your output and all of that to a size that those sales can handle. But if you want to have a larger business, then you're going to have to do this, and getting a brand language right across categories, it's a challenge. Anything that I can put my embroideries on, I can put my colors on, I can do it very seamlessly. But when you talk about something like Pret, which has to be made in fabrics that aren't always pure, they are blends, that they have to fit all body, they can't be bespoke basically. They can't be made to measure, they have to be sold off the rack, then to get those silhouettes right. That's taking me time even right now.
Afshin.
As Abba said, I really love your attitude, your mindset, and you've spoken so much about values, ethics, being authentic, and even taking feedback as opportunities of learning, of growth in a way. But that comes with I'm trying to find the word. It's not confidence, it might be self-belief, but it comes with knowing and connecting with who you are. And even if it's a 3-month vision, but connecting to that vision, that purpose. And I'm wondering what might be supporting you in being so strong within. If there's any, I don't know, if there are practices or techniques, because it's definitely something I'd love to tap into.
No, I actually love that question, because talking about everything else is kind of very superficial if you don't actually connect it to like, what's your grounding, you know. I grew up in a very spiritual family. I'm very lucky. The rules and the norms of a house revolved around duty, around meditation, around love, and around ethics. And of course, I went on my own journey with that. I didn't really adhere to what my parents said, and I'm very lucky that it wasn't very restricted. But coming out of COVID, I got divorced. The brand was just expanding. A lot of stuff was happening, which I think that a 20-year-old me would probably not be able to handle. So I actually welcome each of my birthdays very, very excitedly. I feel like every new birthday has been some grand unlocking of some wisdom from somewhere. Every year is just better. I'm just better at doing it. And my meditation practices help me a lot. There is this app, Energy app, that I use. Yoga that I've been doing ever since I was really young in school. So I think these two practices really actually help me. There is no other way. You can't. It's extremely lonely, and not in a bad way. Not that people abandon you, but it's because it's only you who actually knows what you need to overcome at that point. Like nobody can really tell you if you're being really honest. And that can only happen in silence when you're just alone and in your meditation and in your practice and having faith. Like if you ask me how did you go global, where I'm saying I don't actually know. I actually know. Because I actually know that there is a higher power that is saying, what do you want? I'll give you as long as you remember me. So whatever you may call that higher power, I'm not afraid to say that for me it is my version of God. But it is that guides you, because nothing else will make sense, right? Why should a brand A reach New York and brand B with all the similar aspects not reach it? I think that faith makes it exciting. It's the X factor in everything. It just keeps things unpredictable, and I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shubhika, give us some numbers. Your social following, I think, is 700K.
650. Not my page, Lamya.
Yeah,
very
the brand.
technical.
Stores, I know there's one in Kala Ghoda.
Kala Ghoda, we're opening one in Delhi by the end of this year. That's very exciting because that's actually going to be our flagship store.
Fantastic. You must tell us when that's happening.
Yeah,
we'll be happy to support. Yeah. I have another question, I think.
I'm fashion challenged, but question for you is that do you have any plans to go into men's wear?
We do men's wear.
Oh, sorry.
Really
so which
well.
is why I qualified by saying I'm fashion challenged.
You know, nobody is fashion challenged because we act like fashion is something that's really far. It's our every single day.
So you do bridegrooms as well?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We do.
Who's the favorite, your favorite bridal look? I know you can't pick favorites, but if there was one that you think really
From
stood
what
out
we
to
made?
you. Yeah.
You know, I honestly just like nothing that I've made instantly as soon as I've made it. Like, I'm just over it. It's not, but I'm just, sometimes I'll go into my PR room and office and I look at my house like, wow, I made that. And I'm like, oh, that bead, I don't know, because I just detached from it. It's done, it's gone. It's. Okay. That's why when people come and say, oh, I love that collection, I'm like, really? Why? You know?
So what would you like to be remembered as or remembered for down the line? I know at 50 you have plans to have your academy.
Yeah, I hope it's that. I hope that we are able to correct that imbalance that is, that why should they be at the bottom of the food chain, because literally without my karigars, I mean, you can have the most qualified people from Harvard or from NIFT or NID, FID sitting there, but nobody can embroider. I mean, who's going to make your lehenga if today they stop working, which they are going to? Nobody in their following generation is studying it because they're saying, मैं ड्राइवर बना दूंगा, ऑफिस बॉय बना दूंगा, मैं ये काम में नहीं डालूंगी because ये काम में इज्जत नहीं है. So, I mean, if it is something so basic like that, then, I mean, what is the point of me succeeding on the backs of people that I can't give back to? So.
Hi, I'm Megha. So I'm sure you must be having a creative block, on and off, where you really can't come up with new designs. So how do you manage that? And another thing, right from sketching till the final output, how long do you usually take, just generally, to execute the whole look? I mean, that's something behind the scenes. I like want to know how do you really operate.
Yeah. Creative blocks happen to everybody. I think just having the opposite of, like, people think creative blocks can get solved by going away and, like, traveling, and of course they help, 100% they help, like, no two ways about it. But I think even as human beings, if you've read the Gita, anybody, inherently human beings are lazy. Inherently, it's in all of us. That is why if all this was not created in the world, if we didn't have problems and struggles and pains and breakups and all that, it'd probably just be sleeping and eating. So all this is created so we can get up, go out there and just work out our karma, because there's no other way to do it. So similar thing with creative blocks. Like, if you have the option to travel, if you have the, please take it, but that is not the only way to do it. Another way to do it is to just go into your office and just do it. Just make really ugly things, but just do it, and that ugly thing will lead you to a slightly better thing, and suddenly you will have an amazing thing. Because oftentimes what happens is, when I go with an amazing idea, I end up making a very ugly thing. That whole journey of, you have an idea, it's great, oh my god, it's going to be the best thing, it's not working out, oh my god, it's not all what I wanted, it's absolutely shit, and then it goes to great. So you can actually start from there also, So showing up at your place of work is irreplaceable. Showing up, be it your desk, be it your book, be it your pencils, your colors, your pottery wheel, your anything. Showing up there is really important. That helps with the creative block always. Second, what was the question? The process of, in our world currently, if you were to look at a couture house back then, 50 years back, it would be a very different story. But now, because of the trend cycles, you're having to put out collections every 3 months, which is, you're working continuously. It is, and it's not healthy, and it's not good, and it's not enjoyable. There are so many times where I'm just like, I don't know why I'm doing it. It's not fun at all. This is not what I wanted to do.
So what does Shubhika do in her downtime then? Apart from reading the Bhagavad Gita.
I read. I don't think I get time to do much else. I would love to practice my dance and my music, but that doesn't happen. There's no time to do it. But I hope that I can. In my downtime, I just read.
Okay. Any other fun questions? Okay, we'll get a few more questions and then. Tanya. I'll ask the fun ones.
It's a fun question.
I'll ask the fun ones. Yeah.
Pressure.
So Shubhika, like, you do a collection which is a real success, and then the pressure after the success to do another collection which is even better. Like, even today Taylor Swift released her new album, and there are like a zillion Swifties who are trolling her, saying that all her previous albums were way better than what she did today. So how do you kind of keep raising the bar, or keep that sanity of a collection to another? Because not every collection is going to have that roaring success.
Yeah. So I tell people that when I was younger, a lot of my fuel was, I'll show them. I'll show you. Oh, you think I did? Okay, I'll show you the next one. Now I'm at a point where it's about, I'll show myself, And I think what that does, it cuts out the noise. Because on Instagram, when I put up a post, there are so many people saying, oh my god, you're so amazing, you inspire me, and the next one will be like, oh, where are you from, where's your accent from, da da da, and I like to say New Bombay. That shuts them. But I think it's very important to know where you're getting your feedback from, right? Like, if somebody questions me today on my ethics, my morals, I'll have to really check what that person's ethics and morals are. And if mine align with them, then yes, I will take that feedback. If somebody's vision for what my brand should be is their own personal subjective opinion, it doesn't bother me. But I think if you're talking about like how do you keep upping it, I think that as long as you're human and as long as you're alive, if you're not upping it, you're really dead. There's no other option. The system will make you do it, right? So it's part of playing the game. And I find it very interesting because, when we're playing video games, we often call it fun. Like, I had fun. But video games are so stressful. You're either getting killed, killing someone, drowning, falling down a valley, jumping on turtles, trying to jump over mountains. It's so stressful. But at the end of it, when you survive it, you've unlocked a level, and that's exciting. So what you're calling fun, the idea, which is why like nowadays all the content I see on Instagram that is like work should be fun. I'm like, of course it should be fun. But what is fun? If you compare it to a video game, it's going to be stressful. You're going to fall. It's going to be like, you're going to get killed. You're going to want to kill. Da, da, da. If you kind of understand this whole game, everything is fun. Everything is one level achieved, next level. One level achieved, next level. It's automatic if you look at life like that. I didn't answer your question. I think I got very philosophical. But I think the point is just bettering yourself. It's a human experience. It's not specific to my industry.
Yeah, sure. Let me come to her. Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Devika.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Soni. When you were speaking, talking about the detachment thing, it's just like this question popped up in my head that when we start something which is like a passion project, where we are like, you are doing something which you really love, right? And in the beginning, now that you have like, you have an organization, you have people to take care of things, but in the beginning, it's just a very small group of people who are handling. And as a founder, as an owner, you have the tendency of obviously falling in love with your business. How do you separate, like sometimes you have like, you're so involved in everything, taking care of people, taking care of like the product, what you love. How do you detach yourself and come out of it and look at it from the outside and keep questioning, like, because sometimes when we fall in love with something, then we start defending it or we start finding excuses for it. How, like, did you go through something like this where you had to detach yourself and then come out of it and then look at it at a bigger picture? That is it making sense, or like keep questioning the overall thing?
I think so. For that, two things are really important. One is internally, if you're understanding that I'm too detached and I'm loving it too much, you have that self-check in there. Second is the kind of people you surround yourself with is very important to constantly give you a reality check. Having said that, I think that there is a stage like when you have a baby, the baby needs all of mom's attention for like the first few months. Like you have to like bathe it, feed it, clean it, It grows up to a point where it can go on its own, walk on its own, feed itself, say I don't like this, I like that. Then the baby goes to school and then eventually gets married and forgets all about you, and that's where all the mom-in-laws kind of really get stressed in life. But that's the journey of a brand, a journey of any business. Like in the beginning, if you don't give it that kind of love and passion and attachment and dedication, then it probably won't get nourished and nurtured. So I think that I always find it easier when I can apply business to like other life things, because it's not something that is separate from any other human experience that you're having. So even in that, somebody tell you, look, you're being an overprotective mom. You need to step back. Or the kid will say, now stop, now you can't come to school with me and you can't kiss me and you can't do all of that, right? It will talk back to you. You will know when it's okay to let go. But delegation is a skill that we often struggle with. Like even today, after probably 15 years of me doing it, I don't know what task to give my EA. I find it really hard. Like what do I, she'll come and I'll be like, oh my God, I'll have to think of work for her. That's like my biggest job. Like I know that I need her, but what do I need her to do, That is a skill I haven't learned that, if you want that answer. But it can only come with practice. That's why I need a person who's very pushy. Like I will need then a person who's more ambitious than me, then I want to learn. What are you doing now? Why aren't you doing this? I would need a person like that. So find those kind of people. That's why I'm saying fill in your gaps. If you don't know how to delegate, find a person who will make sure you teach them everything that you know. Yeah.
I think, should we close for the evening? We have drinks. Okay, one last question, Sangeeta.
When you mentioned that you found buyers in New York even more excited about what you're creating, are you thinking, how Sabir has opened his own store in New York, are you thinking in future of direct engagement with your fans and buyers in New York?
See, retail market the world over is in jeopardy right now. it's not easy to do that. Sabya did it very sensibly after he got funding and he got that kind of backing. So I think that every decision then has to be weighed if it makes sense for the business, if you can afford it, if it's the right time to do it. 100% connecting with the consumer there who's already so fashion conscious and who's very evolved in how they shop and how they dress. It's a game changer for any brand, but is it the right time? Do you have the capacity? Do you have the appetite? Do I see myself working for another 25 years? Maybe not. So it's very individual that way.
Shubhika, it's been such a wonderful conversation. You've been so forthcoming. You've been thoroughly refreshing, actually, to hear her thoughts so upfront and have a chance to discuss all of this with you. As you said, everyone normally connects with you through Instagram. So having you here in this intimate setup was truly special.
This setup is lovely.
Thank you
I
so
like
much.
these people. This
So-
was good for me.
So big thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's lovely to see what you're doing here, and that it's such a curated bunch of really curious people. That's always great to kind of meet. It's not about the numbers, it's about the kind of people, and I think that's what you're doing. The impact is beautiful.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank
And
you, Abha.
Devika, do come up and we'll give Devika, Shubhika her gift. And guys, we do have drinks after this, and perhaps Shubhika and Lamia will stay on. So do join us for that.
That is so kind.
Yeah, come.
It's really heavy. You want to put it on the side?
We'll put it.
Good, I'll
Yeah,
put it
we'll
up.
take it to the
Okay.
entrance.
Okay, cool.
So we'll have drinks at the big top, right? And I think a big round of applause for Devika for managing everything so seamlessly today. Please do join us. We hope you had a great first day, and we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.